Subscribe to Teckoh on YouTube or you will forever be a bot at Fortnite.
What is up, guys? Welcome back to another video. So, as you probably know, peace control has been a really big topic in the competitive community in the past few seasons, and for good reason. Peace control is honestly one of the biggest skill gaps right now in Fortnite, and the most effective way to outplay people in box fights and build fights. And that's why, in today's video, I'll be explaining everything you'll need to know about peace control. I'll start by talking about what peace control actually is and how you can get good at it. Then later in the video, I'll hop into creative and show you guys some actual techniques that you can start practicing, which obviously involve peace control. So with that said, if you go on to enjoy the video, then be sure to drop a like, subscribe if you want to see more content just like this, and let's hop into it. To start off this video, guys, I want to give you all a good idea of what peace control actually is and why it's so important to know. Essentially, peace control means controlling your fight by building and editing pieces ahead of your opponent. These pieces can be used to give you an optimal angle, to stop your opponent from building cover, or for basically any other reason that relates to the concept of controlling the fight. You can peace control with every type of build, and almost every situation you'll run into while fighting allows for some form of peace control, which makes it that much more helpful. But overall, peace control is generally used to close the gap against your opponent and put them in a vulnerable spot where you can get an easy kill against them. If you can get really good at peace control, which this video should help you with, then you'll be able to outplay even some of the highest level players. Now that I've gone over what peace control actually is, it's time to talk about our second topic in this video, which is how you can actually improve your peace control and start utilizing it in real matches. Peace control in Fortnite is really a situational thing, and there's no particular technique that's going to work every single time. Sometimes you'll use cones, sometimes you'll be making edit plays, it all really depends on what exact situation you're in. So what we can take away from this is to start by learning all of the fundamental peace control techniques, and then build some good habits and learn when to actually use them through repetition. Essentially, get good at the basics and then drill your peace control over and over again until you master it. So with that said, now that we've discussed what peace control actually is, and also formulated a plan to actually improve at it, let's now move into creative, where I'll show you some of the most important peace control plays that you'll need to know. Alright guys, so as I said, we're going to be hopping into creative here and showing you a few of my favorite techniques to use in terms of peace control. So this first technique is a very simple one, and it really just consists of using cones to your advantage. So I have my opponent in my box right here. What I'll be doing is approaching his box, and this is just one of many examples involving cones, and what I'll be doing is exactly this. So you can see what happens when I get a cone in his box is that he has no way out. He has to turn away from me completely and either pickaxe out or edit out. You can see that really he doesn't have much of a chance here. There's not much he can do to counter me. I have a right hand peek and it's easy for me to just get shots off. Another example of using cones against an opponent is if I'm like building ahead of him in this direction, for example. What I did there was obviously he can't build on this cone, so if he's trying to edit out this way, it's an easy way to get a shot off. Obviously this is very situational and you're going to have to kind of practice when to actually use this technique, but keeping in mind to get cones in your opponent's box is absolutely amazing. Great way to get kills. Anyway guys, moving into our second peace control technique, this one is called the high wall, and it's something that I've used so much in box fights, so much in build fights. It's absolutely tremendous, and not enough intermediate players use this. So the way you'll typically use this is in a build fight. Say you and your opponent are building up to one another, and he's like up here sort of. Usually, most of us are going to build like cones or do something like that, but really that's outdated. A lot of players are going to do something like this, triple edit on us, one pump us, and just do all that fancy stuff. So what I've started to do is actually build high walls instead. So what a high wall basically is just building a wall a layer above. So it's a super easy way to edit through and get peace control. I will say that this technique is a bit more advanced, but it's absolutely worth using. So here's an example of when I might use a high wall. Say for example, me and my opponent are building up to one another, straight ahead basically. What I'll do is before he can get a wall up, I'll build a high wall, I'll edit through, and I'll box him in. So oftentimes when I do this, an opponent's going to end up inside of the box, kind of like this. And in this situation, there's so much I can do. I can go around the side, real quick, edit through, or I can just edit through straight on him. or I can fully box him in, do something, you know, I have so many options basically, and I have complete piece control over him. Obviously, piece control is used to get control over the fight, and this is exactly what it is. Another thing that pros will tend to do when it comes to piece control with high walls is they'll basically high wall, and they'll go for 2 cones like this and box their opponent in. That is honestly a bit difficult to pull off because it's very situational, but it's something else you'll want to keep in mind. Alongside that, you can also use high walls when you're pushing an opponent, like on offense. So you might want to do something like this. Obviously, that's extremely advanced, but if you can get good at it and do it fast enough, that's something that you can really take advantage of. But overall, guys, just starting to use high walls, not only in build fights, but in box fights as well, it's going to benefit you a ton, so I strongly recommend it. Moving on, guys, the third piece control technique I want to show you guys is sort of a diagonal piece control technique that you can use on somebody who's on your side. So the way this will start is if you're building up to one another, and what I'll do is I'll build around them like this. So you can see right here, this guy is going to be trying to get out of his box instantly. You gotta think I am exposed here, but he's gonna be trying to get out. The average player is not, they're basically just gonna be lost in the sauce, I'm not gonna lie. So essentially what I do here is I'm gonna go a bit slower this time just to show you guys. So what I'll be doing is we're diagonal to one another just like this. I'll cone him off. I'll block him off so he can't wall in front of me. And then I'll box him the rest of the way in. So the cone is basically so he can't go up. This is so he can't build in front of me or shoot me, and then these are so he can't get out. So from here, it may look like I'm exposed, but really to him, he has a left-hand peek here. He has a very awkward angle. As you can see, this is a very awkward place to shoot from, and even if he does shoot me, he's hitting my feet. And I have so much more mobility. I can go back, and I can just do so much. I can even edit down on him. Boom. So really, this technique is just another pretty good example of why piece control is so useful. And I also feel like this technique really shows the stages of piece control pretty well. Obviously, you have the piece control to block them off, then you have the piece control to block yourself off, then you have the piece control to block them off again so they can't get out, and you have a good angle, and they can't obviously shoot at you or build in front of you. Finally, guys, the last technique I want to cover in this video is basically just preemptive building in general. So preemptive building and piece control, most people think that those are pretty much interchangeable terms, meaning you can use them both pretty much whenever. But what I consider preemptive building to be is basically to have a structure there before your opponent even gets there. So obviously with piece control, sort of like with that last technique, you kind of just go with the flow, kind of go as everything moves. And with preemptive building, what you're doing is trying to build before your opponent actually gets there or even like makes the decision. So one very common example of preemptive building is simply building a bunch of these, editing down, you know, so you have these structures ahead of your opponent. Another example of this is before they edit out this way, for example, building a whole box in that direction. I completely scuffed my edit, but you can kind of see how I'm building ahead of him there, and he ended up editing out. Obviously, that was planned right there, but it actually works quite often in game. So what I'll do when I'm pushing a box, for example, is I'll build out to this side, build a wall on top, and I'll build a bunch of pieces. I'll even do something like this. I will build so many pieces when I'm pushing a player's box, just so I have the chance to get as much control as possible. The more control you start building at the beginning of your fight, the better it's going to end up for you. Obviously, I have so much more flexibility in this situation compared to if I didn't have this, didn't have this, didn't have this, and didn't have this, if it's basically just me against his box. But instead, I have a ton of flexibility. I can go so many different directions and ultimately get the kill. So yeah, guys, those are my favorite piece control techniques, and hopefully those help you out. And if you need to know, the way you practice basically any of these is by simply hopping into a blank creative map and just doing them, really. So for example, for one drill, you can build a box. For this first technique, the cone in the box, you can build a box, build like this, do that. You can do that over and over again. You can practice your high walls, practice your side edits, and yeah. And with all of that said, guys, thank you all for watching this video. If you enjoyed it and feel like it helped you out, then be sure to drop a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos just like this. Alongside that, make sure to let me know down in the comments what you want to see next on the channel. I actually read every single comment, you guys, and I'm always looking for new ideas, so please don't be afraid to help me out. And with all of that out of the way, I hope you all have an amazing day, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye for now.